I I can't. We don't know if they actually use flames in battle. There's no record. They might have, but it's. I think it's very Hollywood-like that they would have had flame arrow tips that would catch on fire. There's very little of that that we know of, at least in antiquity. But it sure looks great in a movie. So now they're going to advance, which looks good. Now the type of which you could call it a spear that they're carrying is called a pilum or a pilus, which is basically a javelin. It's not really a spear or lance, but it's more of a javelin that they would throw into their enemy formation. But they don't really particularly do this, which I would like to see. I would have liked to have seen that. That's the cavalry now closing in. Yeah, so there's the pilums. They would have thrown them. They should have thrown them at this point, when at this distance, and then they would have created the shield wall. Well, their gladiuses or what have you, whatever command they were given, but they don't do it in this particular film. Again, it's not incorrect. Maybe they just they lost the opportunity, but I think that would have been a really great scene to have those spears thrown into the air, kind of like how we see arrows shot at the same time and then they come crashing down. That's the idea of using that particular weapon, the pilum. But yeah, we could go ahead.
Additions, Sergio. First, Howard says he yelled fire, and YouTube channel Lindeby contained a rant about flaming arrows. Apparently, they probably didn't. So there wasn't any flaming arrows. And then Richard has raised his hand.
In most movies about ancient fire, about ancient warfare, they launch a bunch of archers and somebody yells fire, which quite obviously is wrong. It actually makes no sense. They could yell shoot, they could yell loose or something like that.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like the command. Yeah, sure. I guess yeah. For
yeah. I was just adding the other one. There's a Lindy. It's a very good YouTube channel called Lindy Bitch. It's all about ancient.
Yeah,
weapons.
yeah, I know of it.
Quite a bit. Yeah, I'm ranting quite a bit about flaming arrows. They're difficult to shoot, and if someone shoots one at you, you're going to step out of the way. They work a lot better if the enemy's in a city and he's got all kinds of thatched roofs and stuff like that, which don't jump out of the way.
Right, so, and you also got to consider, like, for example, if for there's siege towers, there would be a need, or sailboats, particularly on like naval battles. They would try to burn their sails. Yeah, but how effective? Right, how effective they were, we don't know. Here, there's like you shoot an arrow at a tree, and all of a sudden hits the tree goes up in flames. And same with the projectiles and about the catapults.
Next time the Germans will learn not to soak their trees in gasoline.
All right, guys, let's get it organized a little bit.
Okay.
Richard, question, and I'll read another couple of questions, please.
Yep.
All right, go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I think we were all sort of going to talk about the same things. With the fire arrow, the tip of the fire arrow is actually a ball, right, to hold the flame. So as Howard points out, it doesn't fly very well, and it doesn't go deep into the armor when it hits. It makes contact and it spreads the flame. So it's really not useful for this kind of siege. There's a comment also about the cavalry. And I agree with that also. Having talked about the Turks for like the last 2 months, they wanted open areas if they wanted to use their light cavalry. Otherwise, they would abandon that and use infantry soldiers in the forest. It doesn't work. And the last thing is, as Sergio pointed out, siege engines just make no sense here, except from the Hollywood perspective of let's have more base explosions. So I think that was really the guiding light about how this military engagement worked, not really how the Romans would actually besiege things, but how things would look really great from a filming perspective.
Okay, thank you, Richard.
Yes, thank you. I agree. It's it's a collection of things that look great in the film, but again, they probably wouldn't use everything in that way. But particularly the cavalry, that was an excellent point. Yeah.
So we have some questions. Kathy says, if the soldiers throw the pilum, what do they have left to fight with?
They have a short sword. First of all, they have two of them. Okay, so they each legionnaire carried 2 pilums with them, one with a weight on it, one without it, and they were used for different times. And then they would have their short sword, which is the gladius, they would then fight once they build their little shield wall. They fight in columns like that. So that was their primary weapon. It wasn't the pilum. Pilum was just their first initiative preemptive attack. You know,
the pilum is used. I'll just put a comment there. The pilum, as far as I know, the pilum is used to break up the enemy formation. You march up the enemy formation. You hurl pilums. The guys get things stuck in a big heavy spear stuck in their shield if they're lucky, and if they're not lucky, it goes through their arm and does damage. And then you can go charge into the formation, and the gladius is a short range weapon. You get right up to the guy.
Right. Well,
you move right up to the guy and stab him.
Thank you, Howard. Appreciate it. Ralph had a question. Ralph?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, in terms of this pilum, okay, that's basically a throwing weapon. Do they infantry? Wouldn't Roman infantry have a longer lance that would be used to fight in mass formation? You know what I mean? Was the weighted pilum used for that purpose?
No, they were both used for throwing. The one with the weight on it was thrown for further distance, so it would give like a harder impact once it would supposedly hit the target. But no, they when they're fighting in this style, which is like in these columns, that's their main weapon. Their main weapon is to stay together with their shields set like a wall and fight with their short shields. I mean, with their short swords, the gladius. That's how it explains.
Yeah.
Well, no, if they stand a wall, I can hold them off the spears. What they've got to do with the pilum is that to break up the enemy formation, charge into it, and then stab them at close range.
Mhm.
You break up the enemy discipline. If you're lined up in a row, you can be kept at a distance with spears, and for example, the Macedonians did that to them.
All right. Well, let's continue the movie, and then we have a lot of material to cover. Sorry.
So here we see they broke their formation, and this is against essentially how they're fighting. And just so you know, gladiuses weren't really that sharp on the sides so much that they would stick on a tree. It's more of a pointed hacking weapon than it is of a slicing weapon. So I don't know if it would stick on that tree that well.
There are Roman manuals in existence that state that Roman soldiers do not slash at people. The concept, if you slash at somebody, he's protected by his armor and his rib cage. If you stab, and as you're slashing, the enemy can stab you, has an opportunity to stab you. You're supposed to get in close and run them through. It's a thrusting weapon. It's a stabbing
Right,
weapon.
exactly. It's a thrust. That's what I meant to say. It's a thrust.
Yeah, but I think the cavalry had different swords. They didn't use gladius cavalry.
This is true. Yes, they had a spatha, which is a much longer.
Yeah,
form
that
of
makes a lot of sense to me.
All right. Well, let me just read some comments of the, Howard just read his. So Peter to everyone is, I guess he was talking about testudo. And then Dennis, he said Romans used mastiffs, big dot, not shepherds. So that's interesting,
I don't know about that. That's the first time I've heard of confirmation that the Romans used dogs in battle. There's a lot of discussion.
They didn't use dogs in battle. That was.
Yeah, I would love to read about that, because if we obviously know dogs are such smart creatures that can be trained to do just about anything, and the Romans would utilize anything that worked. But there really isn't anything in antiquity that I could think of that dogs were used in battle, which I wonder why that is. But who knows?
Let's continue, I guess. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. I'll continue.
You know, you could tell a movie is well edited when you take out the sound. You know, it's when you put sound and dialogue, you see a lot of mistakes. Here you don't. You see the edited. It's very consistency. It keeps up with the tempo of the movie, which makes it really, really great. Sorry, that's just
Would you say there's too much individual combat in this scene for historical accuracy?
individual. I mean, maybe not. Again, we can't assume that once they broke formation, they would have to fight individually, which was not their goal. But we have to imagine it did happen. It had to happen.
Okay, so the Germans broke the Roman formation in this
Sure.
movie. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The scene where they had their pilums, they didn't throw them. I wonder why they didn't throw them. They would have thrown them. They would have certainly stopped the run. And if they would have pierced some of the shields, if they didn't get wounded, the shields would not be useful anymore because now you have a
Sorry.
sword.
I'm laughing because of what's on the screen here.
So we have-
Yeah.
But by the way, the last 20 or 25 minutes of The Last of the Mohicans, it's like the best cinematic experience, just about the best cinematic experience I've ever had in terms of, it is just such a great scene. Most of it is not, without dialogue. Speaking of being without sound, although there's great.
Oh yeah, with the music,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
that and the views of the Adirondacks. I mean, it's just magnificent.
Yeah,
I
we
agree.
have questions on the, Howard has asked, would a Roman general charge into the thick of battle? I guess that, is that a good question? I mean, like, is that a legit question?
Maybe not. I don't think so. The Legatus, I think he was in a good distance. He definitely would have fought. But I that way, I don't know. You could ask
understand, yeah.
a question about everything.
What
My
about-
understanding is that centurions charged into battle and got killed frequently.
Yes, and I'm going to get to that, Howard. I'm going to get to
Yeah,
the
okay.
Centurions.
All right, so the next one is, didn't the German tribe, or Dennis, didn't the German tribes fight, hit, and run style?
Not that I know of. I feel like they would. I mean, yeah, they would have ambushed them if they were outnumbered, but that's everybody. I think this was a staged battle, and not staged, but I think looks like they were planning to surrender something, or maybe there was going to be peace talks or truce, and they said, no, we're going to fight. But who knows for sure.
All right, I'm gonna go to the next slide, and then you talk about it. Sergio, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I was just gonna overall say about that scene. I think it's an excellent scene. I think the director Ridley Scott captures a wonderful, who puts together a wonderful scene of how the Roman soul works. Right, everything's regimented, everything's organized. Every individual has their role. From the archer to the artillery squad where they're shooting the ballistas, and the soldiers and the formation. It's a wonderful scene cinematically with the score. I think he did a really good job, and some of the little flaws. again, it's not terrible. I don't think it's like it's a completely disgrace to history or anything like that. But one thing I would have wanted to see would be the Centurion. Where was the Centurion? We had the legionnaires, we had the auxiliaries, we had the legatus played by Russell Crowe, which is the general, if you will. But the Centurion, he's a very important soldier. He's a very high-ranking soldier, as a matter of fact. He commands the sentry, hence the name. And those were a group of soldiers that anywhere between 80 to 100, depending on the time we're talking about. And the Centurion was a soldier that was very well respected, hated, and feared by his men. He was a no-nonsense type of soldier that rose around in height in the ranks. Okay, he would have been a legionnaire at some point and eventually prove himself. And it was a very prestigious rank in the military. He would not only receive double the pay of the other soldiers, but he'd have a lot of other benefits too. For example, he was able to marry and own property and stuff like that. So this was a career soldier. And again, this was a soldier that was not on horseback or was not fighting in distance. He was alongside his men. He would be like a captain. So he was just as much as in danger in getting killed, in which there were many centurions that were getting killed that would be, you know, in these battles. So just to give you an idea, so 10 in one century, there's about 8, let's say 100 to make it easy. So 100 soldiers in a century, and then 6 of those centuries make up one cohort. Okay, so now you have 6 centurions in that particular cohort, and in that cohort, then there's another centurion above them called a primus pila, which is the first spear centurion, which commands that cohort. So there would be centurions that will rank in other centurions. So if you times that, which is about 5,000 soldiers in a centurion, you have as in a legion, you'd have anywhere around 60 centurion soldiers. So again, the legions fight with their commands, with their orders. The Roman soldier was not a tall or strong or fast individual. Not on the contrary, they were small people, but they knew how to follow commands. They knew how to be disciplined and knew how to fight in battle because they listened to what the captains are given, the orders. And nobody knew that better than the centurion, which was his primary role. So yeah, I would have liked to have seen a centurion in this particular scene, at least one. As I said, there would have been at least 60 of them if this was one legion fighting the Germanic tribes. So that's my only little issue, if I have one. Again, I say it as a little better example of how it's structured in the legion. But other than that, I think the scene is great. It's got a great cinematic tempo to it, presence, and yeah, I think the Centurion would have been a great feature if they wanted to go historically correctly. But that's it. That's all I have to say about that scene. If anybody has any.
Hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
Hey, I was wondering. So, I mean, I've actually known this is historically accurate, and also that I practiced Roman Greco wrestling before. Do we have any records on the Roman legions or the Roman soldiers actually accounts of using the Roman Greco wrestling in a hand-to-hand combat against their enemies? Because I think these kind of sources are very lacking.
I don't, not that I know of, to answer that question. And do I think they would have been like wrestling with the enemies, like combat? I mean, hand combat with no weapons. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because sooner or later, there's going to be soldiers that will lose all their offensive weapons, all the shields. Now they got their hands, right? So they got to find a way to still, fight the enemies. Yeah, it's either that or they cower away. So,
right. That's an excellent question. I don't know. I don't think they have. I think the whole idea, Peter, is that if you break formation, if you lose your shield, and if you lose your sword, your primary weapon, you should be dead. That you're doomed. Okay, so your whole focus should not be breaking against the formation. You need to fight as a unit. You're not fighting as an individual, let alone a weaponless individual. So
the problem is if you drop your sword and your shield, the enemy probably hasn't dropped his sword in the field, if the enemy hasn't dropped his sword and shield, then the world is going to be less one legionnaire.
All right. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys. Howard, do you want to read the question and the answer, Richard, and then how you answered it? Go ahead.
Oh, Richard, yeah, Richard was asking about how aggressive the Centurions were. There's a really good book out there called Soldiers and Goats, which I recommend reading. It goes to the Greeks, it goes to the Macedonians, it goes to the Romans and stuff like that. Pretty well to the end of the Roman Empire. And the comment he makes is the Romans on the battlefield were almost maniacally aggressive. Just somehow there was a balance. It wasn't a blind screaming charge. They just somehow balanced between this extreme aggressiveness and being able to maintain discipline on the battlefield. So they've been a bit crazier. People could have developed tactics and beaten them. If they'd been less crazy, people would have developed tactics and beaten them. It was just a balance, and somehow they did it.
Yeah, and there's also these stories where one of the centurions was known to have is a little staff called a vintis, which it was like a vine, a pole that was kind of curvy like a vine, and he would beat his soldiers that didn't shine their armor properly. Right, he had that reputation that in all antiquity you always had to shine your armor, keeping it from rusting or tarnishing.
Well, I remember my dad telling me about some idiot that developed a polish for the cloth belts the soldiers replace their leather webbing with.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's 20th century.
Hold on, there's a question coming. Who is that, Dennis?
Yeah, I was going to say, my question was also slightly different than necessarily, I mean, what Howard said is actually really interesting and cool, but I was sort of thinking from the position, for example, like the Mongols would never put their leading generals in the actual battle. And they did that because they wanted their generals to reach maturity and continue to lead many more battles in the future. So I was curious if putting your commanders in the field, like you said that the Romans did, actually had a benefit. And before I stop, I just want to say that Dennis has had his hand up for a while. So please
Dennis, go ahead. Sorry,
Yeah,
Dennis.
I just have a question. Not putting down the direction of the battle scene or anything like that, but didn't this battle happen in the summer, not in the winter? As I recall, there was a little thing called the water miracle. The Romans ran out of water. And because of Marcus Aurelius wasn't that great of a military commander, he made a classic blunder. He outpaced his supply lines. So he ran out of water. From what I understand, the Germans were poised to attack the legions who a lot of supplies at that moment, very vulnerable. And at that moment, the sky opened. It started thundering and lightning, and the Germans got scared. The Romans got replenished with water, and that's how the Romans won that battle. In fact, in Rome, there's a stela that commemorates this battle.
Interesting.
Great. Yeah, no, I didn't know those details.
Also, in the if you notice, when Germans were attacking, they were using this sound, whoo, whoo. That's actually the sound that was used in Shaka Zulu fight when Shaka Zulu was attacking, and they totally stole that, completely stole the Shaka Zulu's chant into this Germanic attack on Romans, and I can put it on later as well.
Oh yeah, I think I heard of that. Yeah, they took their like a sound bite from that movie and put it in that movie. Yeah. I heard of that. Yeah.
They also do that in the movie 300.
Yes, that's correct.
From Shaka
Which, as we
Zulu?
all know, is precisely correct.
All right, we have a lot to cover. Let's move on.
Okay.
So the next scene I'm going to cover, and we can watch the whole scene, but I just want to talk about a piece of this scene. So that's where Marcus Aurelius meets his general, just won the war, and he wants to tell him something about Commodus and stuff like that. So you guys watch the movie, so I don't want to, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it. And I'm sorry, this movie, this is a little going to be patchy. I don't know why it's patchy like that, but let's watch.
Oh, yeah. You see that map?
Okay, let's stop right here. Let's see that map. Okay, hold on. Let's move on.
5 years.
I'll put on subtitles if you have it.
I've known 4
Subtitles?
years.
1 second.
Good.
Yeah. Can't hear it, right? I apologize. I don't know what's going on. This is very patchy. So
Never mind. It looks like this video doesn't have that option. So
yeah, it doesn't have that option. Sorry. Let me just replay from the beginning. All right.
Send for me, Caesar. Caesar. Tell me again, Maximus. Oh, yeah. You see that map? For 25 years. Since I became Caesar, I've known 4 years.
All right. He's telling right now to Maximus that he conquered this whole world. Okay. Let's go back to my slide. And what I wanted to say is he had nothing to do with conquering the whole Roman world. Okay. So the last emperor that conquered, made major expansion for Rome was Trajan. So Marcus Aurelius had not expanded the empire, but he's telling the telling his general, you see, I've spent 25 years expanding an empire. He had nothing to do with it. And in fact, I have a map to prove it, basically. And that's one of the blunders of the movies that I wanted to show. Does anybody wanted to comment on that? But
and I also want to say that Emperor Hadrian, I think it's pronounced Hadrian, not Hadrian, that succeeded Trajan. He was the first emperor that actually advocated for staying like the empire needs to stay its same size, and they need to work on its internal problems instead of conquering more ground. So the fact that Aurelius came, 2 emperors after Trajan is absolutely not accurate. So
yeah, I'm gonna switch a video because it's very low, and I apologize for that. And please, I'm gonna use the movie buffs video. I apologize for that. And if there's gonna be somebody talking, again, I apologize. Okay, the next one I want to cover is when he meets Commodus, right? Or anybody wants to comment on that note? If not, but let's just talk. Let's see the scene when he meets Commodus, and when there's going to be comments, I'm going to stop on that and I'll explain what I mean. All right. Let's me expand it again. Thank God I have it.
When the battle is
1 second.
detours away from
Which was the older man is to take my place? My pause, who passed to Maximus. To hold in trust until the Senate is ready to rule once more. Rome is to be a republic again.
although this is an important
All right. So I just want to talk about a little bit of Commodus, right? So obviously this is a big detour from the reality, right? In fact, what happens is the Commodus is being brought up by Marcus Aurelius from the early age, and at year 15, when he is 15 years old, he is actually brought in as a co-emperor, and they rule the empire together. Here he's telling him, I'm not going to promote you as an emperor because you're corrupt, you're completely unfit for it. All the attributes that you have, all the things that you have is not necessarily for the emperor. The movie completely detours from the reality. In fact, Marcus Aurelius brought Commodus to different campaigns for the barbarians, Germanic campaigns and Danube and all that stuff. And also, like I said, promoted him to be a co-emperor. So that's one of the major. This is Commodus. I want to talk about a little bit of Commodus, right? So who was Commodus? And then we'll understand. So he was born in the year 161, died in the year 192, at the year 31 years old. And he became a sole emperor in 180. And he initially was the emperor with his dad, Marcus Aurelius. Basically, he was brutal. He used a brutal misrule, which precipitated the civil war that basically ended in 84 years. Okay, and so that contributed to instability of the empire. Prior to that, the empire was pretty stable for almost 90 years and somewhat. His original name of he was called Commodus when he became a ruler, but his original name was Lucius, and there's like a long name, but I don't want to go through it. And basically, as I've said, his dad used to take him on campaigns, and that's how he made him fit for the thing. Now, he really did have a sister. Her name is Lucilla, who actually in 182 conspired against him with senators to assassinate Commodus. The plot failed, right? And then in this case, when the plot failed, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna admit somebody. I apologize. Oh, it's Sergio. Sorry. So when plot failed, obviously this sycophantic, Commodus is, he tried to retaliate, right? So what's interesting is he retaliated, but if you think of it, he hated his father so much, right? Okay, who's talking? Sorry. His father so much, he didn't want anything to do with how his father was, and therefore he wanted to destroy Rome to begin with, right? And so he gave his whole rule to this, 3 advisors and his mistress, right? So he wasn't ruling at all. He was just, he became a gladiator, and basically that was actually real. But what's interesting, when he was a gladiator, he didn't participate on man-to-man combat, right? So what he did is he actually was mostly shooting the animals from the far, and he was actually a good marksman and archer, and he would kill an animal obviously before animal gets any chance, and they usually would make sure that the animal is not violent before, or doesn't have a tendency to attack an emperor. And also, if he did participate in man-to-man combat, just like in the movie, the other person's weapons would be dull, or they would be stabbed, initially, and stuff like that. So what's interesting is somebody was talking about Greco-Roman wrestling. One of his mistresses, Marcilla, actually hired this wrestler. His name is Narcissus, to strangle Commodus, which he did. But in the movie, we obviously saw Commodus dying in the at a Coliseum. But in real life, he didn't die in Colosseum. He died in his bathtub being strangled by Greco-Roman wrestler Narcissus. And we'll talk about that. Now, who was Marcus Aurelius? We obviously know that he's a beginner of the Stoic philosophy. He was a very good emperor, extremely good emperor. And so therefore, Commodus took over for somebody who really did such a good job. So it's interesting. Dennis has pointed out his sister was 17 years older than him. I doubt there was any sexual attraction. That's correct. So let's just continue on the movie. I apologize, I digress a little bit. Or have anybody had anything to say about Commodus? Hello?
I'm just going to point out when I was reading up on the gladiators, a lot of Roman nobles participated in the beast hunts. That was a fairly standard thing to do. The really smart thing to do if you're actually going to participate as a gladiator is make sure your opponent understands you're not going to kill them. So, and I suspect there was a certain amount of bashing shields and helmets and stuff like that rather than going at the bare parts.
Right.
So if the other gladiator understands that his shield's going to get the crap beat out of it, then he's going to beat the crap out of Commodus' shield, and the whole thing will look glorious.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So next thing what I wanted to do is I want to talk about the Colosseum, and then therefore after proving the gladiator proved himself in the peripheral fighting scenes, he was promoted to go into Colosseum, and therefore we're going to talk about the Colosseum. Let me just mute for a second. So let's just go 1 second. Sorry.
And if anyone's interested, there's a YouTube channel called the Gods and Generals. And if you go on that YouTube channel, it's kind of like an animated history channel. It has a video called The Commodus and the Golden Age of Rome. That was a good one.
Okay, that sounds, yeah. We'll look at that one. I just wanted to get to the Colosseum. God. All right. Let's just 1 second. Here it is. I just wanted to show the glory of Colosseum and how it looked, obviously. and we'll talk about it, the structure itself. So the Colosseum was the largest amphitheater in the world. There was 50,000 people or so that was inside of it. And in a movie, basically, it's it's portrayed, but there was a lot of fights that were going on that with animals. There were fights going on. There actually sea battles that were going on as well. So what I wanted to do, I'm going to stop this here and then go into my slides, and then we'll go to the Colosseum slide, and we'll talk about this. So what's happening here is it was about 3.5 million cubic feet, 100 cubic feet meters. So on top you had 300 tons iron, bronze clamps, and they had 235 masts, 40 shields, 40 windows. So interesting, they had windows, 240 arches, 160 statues, 80 entrances. Okay, spectators limitation was 50,000. It was about 620 feet and 189 meters wide, and then in height it was 158 and 48 meters. Just wanted to throw some statistics by you. And obviously it was something that somebody wanted to get into. There was sea battles going on, there was animal battles were going on. In fact, Romans depopulated a lot of the species around the area of Africa and Europe because of the fact they used giraffes, they used elephants, they used alligators, everything they could go. And obviously, it did had an effect on flora and fauna. Anybody has any additions, wanted to add anything? I guess not. All right, let's continue. All right, I want to talk about the gladiators. All right, first I'm going to play a clip of the movie, and then I'm going to talk about gladiators. All right. So in the movie itself, the gladiators are obviously, in general, gladiators were the entertainers, right? So their professionalism level in real life was pretty high. But in the movie, oh, somebody just has a question or something. I heard gladiators fought outside the arena, not an actual Coliseum. Is that true? I don't think so. Anybody has any additions to that? I don't think so.
The gladiator combat went on for something, call it, say, 600 years. Initially, it was a funeral ceremony, and it took place where they're usually in front of the decedent's tomb, I guess. Obviously, that the Colosseum was Flavian, which means it was built mostly by Vespasian and finished by Titus. So it clearly they couldn't have used it prior to that.
Interesting.
The gladiators agree not to attack the audience. You can't rely on lions and tigers and water buffaloes and stuff not to attack the audience. You do want to contain some of the things in the arena.
But there were other arenas before Colosseum, right? Circus Maximus, for instance.
Well, I think initially it was a funeral thing, so there probably wasn't a huge crowd. You need some kind of arena to hold it. If you're doing this to entertain the crowd, you need to put the crowd somewhere.
Yeah,
so
no,
yes, you're right.
Before Colosseum, there were plenty of arenas all over Italy, and in Rome specifically was Circus Maximus, and the gladiators did fight on the arena, similar to Colosseum, maybe a lesser one.
Right. All right. So now I want to talk a little bit about. Ralph has a question. Ralph, go ahead.
I just, while we're on the gladiators here, Spartacus, of course, was a gladiator, and his rebellion was spearheaded by gladiators. They would have fought in arenas, I imagine. I guess this was before the Colosseum was built. I mean, it was during the Republic, so this was, I don't know, 200 years or so before.
Yeah. Spartacus was with Pompey, Caesar, and
Spartacus was 70 BC, and then the Colosseum was built in 79, I guess, AD.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
It predates the call. The point is, at some point you transition from a religious thing, from a religious ceremony to a crowd entertainment. So you have to get somewhere where there's a crowd. So they built theaters for doing Greek plays. That would do fairly well if the gladiators agree not to attack the audience.
Yeah, and there's a question that came out, would they really have tigers come out during the man-to-man battle?
I thought the gladiator combat in the movie was a complete crock. A battle between two gladiators, I forget what the guy was called, but there was a referee in the ring with a staff, and he would start the fight and stop the fight and check everybody out and stuff like that. So the fight was between two gladiators. Releasing a tiger endangers the referee and possibly other officials in the ring. And you can't guarantee that the tiger will attack anybody. The tiger might just go off in a corner and take a nap.
Right.
Yeah, I think the fight with animals were in the first half of the day, and there were special the gladiator types who were fighting animals, and then in the afternoon there was a gladiator battles. That's how.
Yeah, the gladiator combat was ritualized. There were rules.
Yeah, and then there were one-to-one battles that could be many pairs, but usually it was one-to-one battles, not like group scenes. But I think it was really a great scene cinematically. My favorite, actually.
Well, let's play the scene, and then I'm not gonna have any sound. I apologize. I'm just gonna. So basically, what's happening is in the movie, it seems to me like they chose the slaves randomly without any purpose. They just purposed to die, right? And in fact, in reality, the slaves were chosen very carefully. They trained them carefully. In fact, when the gladiators weren't fighting, Romans had them have a bath, and they were taking, massages. They were the sports stars of the time. You can think of them or almost like horses these days, race horses, right? So people were putting a lot of the things on them. So like in this particular scene, this guy is a scribe, and he tells to one of the gladiators, "I can't fight. Why they bring me in to fight? I speak 7 languages." And the guy tells him, "Well, you can scream in 7 languages tomorrow when they're going to stab you." So it's particularly very random. They'll throw anybody in the thing. It was like free for all. And also, if you look at the scene itself, after it goes through, it basically, when they come out, it was no structure. It was completely chaotic. Look at this. Like, it's just, the jaws are flying, and it was not so at all. So next thing, what I wanted to do is I wanted to get to the types of the, and if you can see also, various people are wearing various helmets. I want to talk about different types of gladiators. I have slides for that. So let me just move on to that. Like, this is the upkeep of the gladiators. They were getting a massage, they were taking bath. So they really had a good time. Now, if you look at it in Coliseum itself, look at what these people are wearing. I mean, there is no structure to it. This is not how gladiators look. Let's get to the point how the gladiators are supposed to look. All right, let me just finish with this scene. Some guy's wearing like a pygmy hat. This guy's wearing like, I don't even know what it is, but let's just get to different types of gladiators. So I have slides for that. All right. First of all, I want to get to the 3 most famous gladiators, obviously Spartacus, Flama, and the Emperor Commodus. So first gladiator I want to talk about is Samnites, right? We all know Samnites, they come from this region in Italy. There was, 4 wars with Samnites. And for some reason, Romans portrayed them to be a gladiator. Therefore, they portrayed anybody that they really didn't get along with, right? So Samnites were arguably the first class of gladiators. They were based on Samnian warrior after the Roman conquered them in battle. But as you know, Rome then made up with Samnites, right? I mean, they conquered them and then they integrated them in their society. So now I want to talk about their helmets, right? Helmet of a Samnite would be heavy and wizard, featuring a high crest with a decorative feather. Samnite gladiators would wear 1 protective greave on their leg, and their arms would be wrapped in a leather bands and for additional protection. The arm guard is called the manica. So if you see the arm guard, it's called manica, and Samnite swords were the infamous gladius, and their shields were called scutum, right? I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. So what is scutum? Scutum was, as you can see, that's the shield. It was, generously sized. It was huge, curved, rectangular shield. It was designed to be carried in one hand. It was made of a wood and a leather. Its large size made it useful in a protective entire body. So it protects the entire body, and it was used by Romans at war. I mean, they were just like Romans. In close quarters fighting, it was perfect companion to the gladius. So gladius was small, and this was a big shield. Soldiers hid behind their shields and thrust their efficient gladius swords at the enemy. So Samnites were a standard part of almost every show in the arena until they were seemingly vanished because Rome integrated them. So they didn't want to portray them as enemies. So after Rome conquered them, many years of this gladiatorian fighting, they kind of disappeared from the whole scene. And there's some attributes here. You can see weapons as gladius, bronze helmet. So as you can see, in real life, it didn't really make sense that people wearing just random stuff just for the movie, for the movie purposes. Here is very organized. Let's go to the next one. Next one, I'm gonna talk about it. Murmillo or Gallus. So Gallus is obviously standing after Gauls. And so the Murmillo gladiator was a century Gaul, followed a similar story to the Samnites. Gaulish warrior inspired a new type of gladiator called Gaullus. Like the Samnite, they were very popular, so rather than removing them from the spectacle entirely, they would be renamed Murmillo, not to offend Gauls, I guess, at this point. Their name has origins in a Greek word meaning sea fish, because if you look at their helmet, they look like fish. They had the standard loincloth. This would be closer to the equivalent of heavyweight boxer. Their kit was not light. They were carrying a heavy armor. So it would be advantageous to be tall and strong. They had the standard loincloth, belt, scutum shield, gladius, and manica, but their helmets featured feather plumes and large crests representing a dorsal fin. Helmets were very detailed with insignia, sculpture, and other intricate artwork. Anybody have any questions on this or want to add anything? I have three questions. Why did none of the gladiators have a chest protection? Howard, you did the gladiator presentation. Do you know?
I did. Okay, there are several things here that I found fascinating. The first thing is the helmets hide their faces. If you go to the arena and there's a big gladiator combat and they kill Bob the Gladiator, cut his throat at the end of the battle, and he's dragged off, and you meet Bob the Gladiator in a bar a week later, you don't realize that's Bob the Gladiator. So I don't know that they cheated, but those helmets provide the opportunity. Probably there were no gladiator this is a fun contest. This is not functional battle armor. If this is a real combat thing, you'd have a breastplate and you'd have a lighter helmet that gave them a good view out of it. Another interesting point here is that the gladiators were symbols of manhood, and the Murmillo in particular were considered manly gladiator. This is big and bulky and ferocious and stuff like that. He's going to get to the Radiaris at some point. The Radiaris were considered effeminate.
That's correct.
And we get to that. It gets really weird and complicated. It was just the way the Romans saw it. This is not like looking at the thing. You can see this is not proper functional combat armor. And again, it is sort of ceremonial nature of gladiator combat. And I suspect if you're in combat with this guy, it's very easy to clobber his shield and his helmet. And then he'll clobber your shield and helmet. And, if you both look heroic. I'm just looking at my numbers here. My understanding is in the 2nd century AD, gladiator combat was more dangerous than it was in the 1st century AD. But they're figuring that I think 6 gladiator combats result in one dead gladiator.
Oh, wow.
So you had a good chance of surviving. Your chances of surviving in individual combat were pretty good. You weren't going to make it to 30 years of age.
All right, so next one I want to talk about, thank you, Howard, is Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, if you think of it, what type of, I don't have a picture for that, but this particular type of gladiator was so unpopular, very unpopular. Everyone left the arena when they fought. They were the archers, right? So, so Sagittarius were skilled archers who were extremely lightweight armor and commonly fought in horsebacks in a mock nature environment. So what happens when the archers start firing? If he misses, he can kill somebody, right? So people just left during the time when Sagittarius came out. All right, next one I want to talk about. Well, this is a helmet, the fish helmet I just wanted to show you for.
Well, the other comment, I don't think the Sagittarius were very common.
Correct.
That's reason. Yeah.
This is Mormilo's helmet. It looks like a fishnet. All right. Next one I want to talk about is Haplomachus. Sorry, I'm butchering it completely. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna admit somebody. Apologies. Oh, I guess it's Sergio. Keep going. So Haplomachus, these men were tall, stocky, durable, and strong, okay? They needed great strength due to the heavy armor and extra weapons they carried. They used to carry 3 weapons, more than 3 weapons. I mean, 3 weapons is at least, so there could be gladius, spear, and pugio. What is pugio? Pugio is a small auxiliary dagger typically used as a backup weapon. It's primarily made for stabbing, okay? So they had 3 weapons on their person. In terms of armor, they had greaves protecting their legs. It's to complement the fact that they had small circular shields. If you look at their shields, they're very small. So they needed to protect themselves. The bronze shield was not only a defensive weapon, but also it was used to bash the opponents. So it was used as a weapon. Any questions? And the last one I wanted to get into, there's many more, but I just wanted to cover this once, is a Thracian. And obviously, it came out from the region of Thracia, and they had an iron reinforced Thracian shield. This was called parmula, sometimes round or rectangular. That's the only difference. Everything else pretty much, they were armored just the same way. And then, this is the way it is. So let's get on with
Can I add something to the Thracian?
Yeah.
So he was known for having a curved shaped sword called a sika. And basically it was kind of like a V, an upside down V. I believe that the Thracian auxiliaries also used this weapon. But the Thracian or the Thrax gladiator was typically paired against the Marmulo, which had a similar shield and a short sword. Actually, he had the Pugio, and but he was known, like, if you want to find out, if you're at a museum and you see like an oil lamp with a gladiator on it, and you want to find out which one it is, there's 2 distinct features. One is that curved shaped shield. Sword called a sika, or a little griffin that he had on his helmet. He always had a griffin in the tip of his helmet, if you look at it on a profile. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Excellent point. So what I want to do next is actually go on Google Earth and see a Coliseum, if you guys don't mind. Here's, I have it prepared here. So this is actual Coliseum. So we're gonna go inside.
Zach, can I ask a question? I don't know if I had to zoom out and zoom in, but was there some connection with the amphitheater, which was a Flavian amphitheater that at the time, and the Jewish wars?
Yes.
Did you hear about that?
Yeah, the second destruction of the temple, therefore the Titus and Vespasian robbed the second temple, and all the slaves that built, most of the slaves that built the Colosseum were Jewish slaves, and also there's a inscription that has them carrying menorah from these, from the second temple on the Colosseum as well. So it was basically, was built mostly by Jewish blood, so to speak. Yeah.
Another point there, and that is that if you're running gladiator games and you want to kill gladiators, you need a large population of expendable gladiators, and that would have all the Jewish slaves captured in battle.
Yep, that's right.
I suspect in the 1st century AD, when all the wars stopped, all of a sudden the supply of expendable slaves was cut off, and that makes gladiator combat very expensive.
That's right.
Aside from any moral issues anybody might bring up.
What I'm gonna do is we're gonna go inside the Colosseum right now. We're traveling, and I'm gonna bring it down a little bit, and then if you guys want to go to the right, left, whatever you want, or go inside, or maybe even. I just chose a bad angle, I guess. So this is the Colosseum. This is everything around it. So I mean, obviously, not a lot left, but if anybody wants to talk about it a little bit, I don't even know where they had the sea battles that was happening. They said they had naval battles in a Colosseum, so that's an interesting fact.
Yeah, if I can speak to that a little bit.
Go ahead.
How would they seal the floor?
Yeah, I was going to say they had a number of gates and pieces to create a watertight bottom, and the water would rise to the edge of the seating area. So that's how they were able to fill it. That's how they filled it up with water, and they had massive pumps.
The filling's not the filling's not a problem. The aqueducts come from higher levels, so there's no problem getting. There was running water in ancient Rome. I'm wondering. I'm a mechanical designer. I can here to tell you, sealing things is difficult.
Oh wow!
True.
Especially if there's more than one part.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's. Let me just see if I can get it from a different angle. Sorry. All right. Let's go inside. Just to see the seats, I guess. That's inside the Colosseum, guys. All right. That's good. All right. Any other questions, recommendations? No? All right. So let's go back to the slides. So we looked at that. We looked at this.
Got one more thing about I saw mentioned about the gladiators with bare chest. Are you going to do the Retiaris, or are you moving on?
No, you can do Retiaris if you want.
Yeah, the Retiaris was the guy that ran around with the pitchfork. In general, the Retiari were considered effeminate compared, for example, to this guy. There was something called a Retiaris tunicatus, and it was a Retiaris wearing a tunic, and those were considered really effeminate. It was really, the Romans were really disgusted with them. And there is a poem by Juvenal about some guy from an honorable family who marries a male horn player and then shows up and appears in the arena as a gladiator with a tunic and trident. So this is particularly contemptible. It was particularly contemptible as far as the Romans concerned. So that's another reason to have a bare chest.
Interesting. Oh, let me just admit somebody. Look. All right, so let's move on. Was the film accurate, right? Obviously, there was some truth to gladiator fights, which I will explain. But what's interesting is, in reality, even though we see in the movie that gladiator lives are not very valued, they used to be given 100 times the value of the gladiator if the gladiator gets killed to his owner. So it was not an interest of anybody for a trained professional to get killed. Sometimes when the gladiator fight was very boring, they would stop the fight. They called a stalemate, and they would say just for them to have survived so they can fight another day. So that's another distinction in the movie, because in the movie it looks like Commodus just wants to kill everybody, and in fact maybe he did, because he was a sycophantic, and in fact one time he killed his minister, and then he fed the other predecessor to that minister to the crowd to get stamped on. So the gladiator fights did take place. Animals such as tigers were often used in arenas where gladiators might fight each other as well as animals. So they fought concurrently. That answers that question. In fact, excavation in the Coliseum showed a variety of exotic animals were present there. This included bears, lions, hyenas, elephants, wild boar, buffaloes, tigers, bulls, wolves, leopards. However, the clothing of the gladiators depicted, particularly the helmets, were likely not true and were stereotypes taken from the later periods. That's to Howard thing. Although gladiators, as suggested in the, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say with that particular gladiator, the Bestiati, as he was known called, there was two of them. There was one that actually fought the animal or the beast full on, and then there was others that were just pretty much condemned criminals that were sentenced to death, and they would have them face, let's say, a tiger who hasn't eaten in a month, and this criminal or this gladiator, if you want to call him that, would have a very dull weapon or no armor, a huge disadvantage, and the animal would just devour him right on the spot. So that was one thing that he was meant to be killed. It wasn't a gladiator necessarily supposed to kill the animal. The animal was supposed to kill the criminal, and so on. But yeah, that's why I wanted that. Another thing I wanted to mention with the care of the gladiators is that we've just recently found out that they had mostly vegetarian diets, which is pretty fascinating. They were not meat eaters, which is, and yet they were very strong athletes in every sense. So, you know,
they're given a lot of food, just not meat. I don't
Right.
know how much meat would the ancient Romans have eaten in general. It's not like they
That's
were given the number of people in the city. It was not possible to feed everybody meat.
right.
So
When,
I don't.
when we're talking about a gladiator, which was a sort of an investment, and he would receive the best medical attention and training. And again, these were athletes. Even though they were slaves, they were prized possessions for the ludista. So yeah, you would think they would be able to afford them to give them, you know, a well balanced meal, but no, they gave them lentils and grain and everything, and perhaps maybe cheeses, but it was vegetarian, not vegan, vegetarian. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we have a question from Rolf. Go ahead.
I'm unfortunately going to have to leave soon, but you know, I don't want to leave without getting an answer to this question. Now, Marcus Aurelius wasn't really killed by his son, was he?
No, he was not killed by his son.
Okay.
Obviously, it's, you know, it's a lot of baloney, and he groomed Commodus to be his, you know,
Successor.
Well, he co-ruled with him when he was 15 years old. So, so that's complete. It's a fallacy in that regard.
But it makes a better movie, though, Ralph. Right?
So, does the movie romanticize the era? Yes, the movie romanticized the event of the Commodus' death in 192 CE. Number of the high Roman soldiers formed a plan to kill then 31-year-old emperor. They poisoned him, but he vomited up the poison. Feeling the effects of the poison, he went to bed. One of the Commodus' mistresses, Marcia, led his wrestling partner, Narcissus, into the bedroom, where Narcissus killed the emperor with his own hands. You know, although the movie Gladiator romanticized the situation, making Narcissus into Maximus and general loyal to Commodus' father, so the idea is still there. So Narcissus and Marcus, there is some connection to that. All right. Does the film exclude certain events? Yes, film does leave out some key parts from the characters' real lives, right? For example, Commodus' sister Lucilla in the film was depicted as trying to encourage the conspiracy against her brother. She did in fact conspire to kill Commodus, but failed in 182, leading to her death. Also, unlike what the film depicts, Lucilla was probably ready to be a co-ruler with her husband. She's shown as a widow in the movie. So she had a husband, which is why she may have conspired. However, she may have not conspired herself, as a possible Roman until she witnessed her crazy brother behavior. Unlike the film, Commodus probably did not try to have any relations with his sister, which was pointed earlier, but most likely with his other siblings, according to the ancient resources. Another example would have been Commodus' death. In the movie, he died fighting in Coliseum with the Maximus when in reality, Narcissus, his wrestling partner, eventually killed him in 182 as part of a larger conspiracy by Roman leaders.
I have a question. Would you say that I guess you call it inbreeding was pretty common within the patricians? In other words, they'd marry, like I know Caligula, no, not Caligula, sorry. Was it Claudius married Agrippina, which was his niece? Was that something that was a regular thing? Anybody know?
No, I mean, it was frowned upon. I mean, they said that Caligula was Nero was Caligula was his father, like it's just, it didn't make any sense to me because he was sleeping with his sisters and stuff. So
Caligula was not Nero's father.
Yeah, Germanic.
There's a presumption.
Yeah, there was an extended Claudian family. They were all close. They were all close, fairly closely related. But yeah, Claudius marrying his niece is I think it was considered to be pretty extreme.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is the film was biased? I believe the movie Gladiator is biased in some aspects. An example would be that the Caesar are evil and gladiators are praised and worshipped, making the audience see Maximus in a better light than how it really would have been. Back in the Roman time, gladiators were nothing but slaves or criminals trained to fight. They might have gotten a small amount of praise when they fought, but nothing comparable to the reign of Caesar. So Commodus versus, obviously the gladiator would have been an issue. And I don't understand why Commodus wanted to be the gladiator, because that was not something that, his circle should really accept, so to speak.
Well, when I did my presentation on gladiators, I went through that and I tried to make sense of it. Now, for starters, the Romans in charge and the people writing the histories were all part of the Roman noble class, and they looked down at everybody that wasn't noble. So the gladiators were scum, the fishermen were scum, the people that swept the garbage off the road were scum, your carpenters are scum. Everybody is, enlisted men are scum. So gladiators were not part of a noble culture. It sounds like regular Romans had frequently admired gladiators. It's like you watch pro wrestling or sports, or maybe you're into Garth Brooks or something like that. If you feel yourself noble and elite, you look down on all that stuff. That could be overestimated. It can be. I think you can overestimate the importance of it. The Romans were members of the Roman writers, the people that write histories, are members of the nobility. They're also all men. Like we're told that women were all attracted to gladiators, but these are middle-aged men writing this. So we don't know where women fit into this. We actually don't know where women fit into this. A lot of us complain. Why are women lusting after gladiators?
Speaking of women, there is some evidence of gladiatrix, which is the female gladiator. I don't know if you know that.
There's solid evidence that they existed.
Yeah.
Most of the written, there's a sculpture of them. Most of the written evidence is people complaining about women participating. So they may have been participating in wild beast hunts and stuff like that. And they were complaining about noble ladies doing. Don't forget, in the ring, the audiences did admire the gladiators, and it was a chance to go off and show off glory and stuff like that, and show off how brave and glorious you are.
I just want to see if any new people have any questions. Deborah, Lavinia, Kathy, Leah, Luke, Dennis, Peter, have any questions, or maybe you want to just general comment? This was our first. Oh, here's Dennis. Dennis, go ahead. You have raised.
Yeah, from what I understand, Commodus's rule, his main fault, he bankrupted the empire.
That's right.
And it led a few years later to the empire actually being sold off, which was a comedy in itself. The empire was put up for bid between three patricians. One got it, and he was immediately killed. but it was really in bad shape until the time of Caracalla.
That's right. For 84 years, there was, prior to that, they had a prosperity. After that, there was a civil war basically going on. And Commodus was the kind of downfall. Marcus Aurelius is considered to be golden age of Rome, in that regard. And then in the movie itself, his sister Lucilla is saying that he used 2 years worth of grain for the gladiatorial gladiatorial fights and in Coliseum, and therefore people are cheering for him right now. But in 2 years, they're going to be hungry and they're going to eat him. Basically, that was in the movie, so that was the truth of it. That would actually happen. Is Kathy raising hand or? We just
Oh no, this is Peter. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, if I remember correctly, Marcus Aurelius was the last of the 5 good emperors, right? After Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antonius Pius, and Marcus Aurelius himself. So I think another reason I think Commodus was viewed to be so in a negative light was because, unlike his father, he had a really bad relationship with the Senate. So it's just, and I think they saw that in the first 2 years of his reign. So he technically had a bad start when it comes to that, because I think Marcus Aurelius, he and the senators, they had a really good rapport. They were willing to work with each other, while Commodus wanted to be like the ultimate god emperor, if that makes sense.
Well, that's why he became a gladiator. Right? He thought of himself as being Hercules, so he thought that he's invisible. More immortal. And but it wasn't the case. Obviously, he was sick in the head. He let his mistress and 3 advisors to rule, and he just left it all be. And then he was killing one minister after another, and he was completely unheard of the way he behaved. And he didn't But then there was other emperors, like for example Caligula, who brought the horse in the Senate and said, "That's my new senator." So it was prevalent. There were a lot of them. It was either hit or miss, right? You get either you get Marcus Aurelius or you get somebody like Commodus. Deborah, you might want to unmute yourself. Deborah, you might want to.
In reference to that, there's a scene in I, Claudius. I don't know if you've all watched it. Maybe you have, and that's the Caligula scene you're referring to, with the horse. And it's, seeming to be well known that Caligula was, probably literally insane. But I'm just wondering about if we know anything about Commodus and his mental state.
Yeah, he was definitely, if you would think of it, right now he wouldn't diagnosed with, I don't know, all kind of bouquet of the psychological issues, including schizophrenia. Right. Obviously not on the Caligula level, or Caligula last, name was Little Boots. Everybody, the whole Roman army voted for him initially.
Mary Boot, the historian Mary Beard translates that Caligula as bootykins, as in men, all hail Emperor Bootykins. He was dead meat.
Yeah, but actually the people still liked him. It's just the who writes the history, right? So we don't know it wasn't people that wrote the history. It's the bureaucracy and Senate and all those guys. So sometimes we don't know the real truth. Like with Caesar, how many times he gets stabbed? 100 times or something by his favorite stepson Brutus, right? Initiating the whole thing. It was just. It's unheard of. Rome, it's like you can think of them like a mob bosses, right? They never make it to the end. They all get killed.
Well, I think most of the emperors got killed. I was figuring the problem with Commodus is that he, when you write a history of the Roman Empire, you start documenting decline, and normally the decline is started at 180 AD with the accession of Commodus, which indicates his rule was a complete disaster. Actually, monarchies have to deal with nutcase leaders, and they just murder them and move on. which is what they did. But the problem was the Roman political system collapsed at that point. And that's really complicated. The 5 good emperors were a biological accident. Nerva, Trajan, and Hadrian were all homosexuals, and they weren't having sex with their wives, and they didn't have natural kids. So they adopted their successors. I don't know, and it's possible nobody knows what happened with Antoninus Pius. And so you went 90 years without any natural sons, and then the guy comes up with one, but the son doesn't turn out to be very good. Somebody mentioned the thing being auctioned off. What happened is that the guy that took over was the guy that took over from Commodus was Pertinax, and he was murdered 3 months later by the Praetorian Guard. And at that point, they auctioned the title off to somebody named Didius Julianus. They held an auction, and Didius Julianus paid the most money. I don't think he was filling the imperial coffers. I think he's bribing the Praetorian Guard.
Yeah.
The Praetorian Guards were the guys that protected the Roman Emperor. It was about 50 years before somebody realized the Praetorian Guard.
Howard, did they really protect? Praetorian Guard killed.
I'm headed there. It was about 50 years before somebody realized they were the guys, the number one guys for murdering emperors.
Exactly. So you're the ones
that
that
disbanded them.
Exactly.
I think it is true that Roman soldiers in the later centuries, like this, I think the 3rd century BC, and the 3rd century AD, crisis of Rome, right? I think it was around that time and onwards until the fall of the Western Roman Empire. The soldiers of Rome, were actually fighting for 2 things: gold and their generals. They didn't give a damn about Rome.
Well, that's okay. The problem with the Roman Emperor in general, and it's worth remembering here, the Roman they weren't kings in the Indo-European, in the sort of Germanic Indo-European sense that we perceive kings. They didn't have a hereditary right to power. Rome was a failed republic. By 180 AD, and this is actually the biggest problem with the movie, is they talk about reestablishing the republic, and nobody talks about that back then. They were running, the Senate survived, outlasted the Western emperors, as did the posted consul. But basically, you were emperor because you controlled the army. And the instant you lost control of the army, you were murdered, and somebody else took over. And it just happens that Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius commanded respect, and they were tough guys that command troops.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dennis have raised the question. Go ahead, Dennis. Dennis?
Yes, was just unmuting. I noticed that people say that Marcus Aurelius was considered one of the 5 great emperors. That's not true. He was the only emperor, though, that left a written record. And that's what his fame comes about from.
Actually,
not that he was a great administrator or a great military leader, because he wasn't.
That is a good segue to my next thing I want to do. I want to actually share my schedule of the events that we have coming up. And we do have the meditation by Marcus Aurelius as part of the 24th discussion on November 24th. So let me just go through. So every Saturday, what we do is we do Roman Empire subjects or topics. Like for example, on the 20th, we're gonna talk about Roman expansion in Italy and Samnite's War, 3rd and the 4th Samnite War. Paul's gonna present that. And then Howard is gonna finish us off in November with the 3rd Punic War and destruction of Carthage and the 3rd Macedonian War. I think at the time Philip V already dead. Then we have on the 21st, Bronze Age in Asia. So anybody interested, Alex C is going to present that. And then I'm going to present libraries that are being destroyed or were destroyed, Ashurban and Balaba in Assyria and Alexandria, Egypt. Then next Tuesday, we are going to do Timur Lane. I misspelled it, I'm sorry. Timur was the emir from current day Uzbekistan. At the time, he basically conquered, you could think of, the whole Middle East and went to China, and that's where he died. Then on Wednesday, we're going to talk about Sharia law We did Islam 101. It was a big success. We had over 100 people and 3,000 people on our Facebook streaming. So come back and, it's going to be Narul and Abdil, and it's going to be interesting. Then on 11/16, we're going to talk about Islamization of Turkey and early Ottomans. And then we're going to finish off this section on Muslim. It was a three-part series. Women in Islam on 17th. Then Rich is going to continue with the Middle Eastern sections, which is Ottoman growing pains, on the 30th. Then we're going to do Marcus Aurelius' meditation on 24th. Me and Marika is going to do it as a part of philosophical piece. And then, this is basically, if you want to check out our schedule, let us know. Who just texted me? I wish I could attend all of the presentation, but I have other. Dennis raised hand. Go ahead, Dennis. Dennis?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry about that. Does it still up? So I could have sworn I loaded it.
So this is our group. We are actually, if you want to check out our group, this is the name of the website. And we have a lot of really, really good presentations and we're mostly, the ones doing presentations here. The website is omnicarta.org. We have several social network pieces. We have a meetup. It's called the History Most Ancient, but we do other things, as you can see, not just Roman Empire. We did Mesopotamia, we did ancient Greece, and we're gonna head it, with the Middle East and all that other stuff. And we also have, Twitter account, Instagram, Facebook. So if you have any questions, you can drop us. But join our meetup, join our YouTube channel, and I'll see you on Tuesday, if not Wednesday, if not the following week. Let me know. We have some.
I am kind of curious. How did this group was made in the first place? Because I'm a very big history person. I was wondering, like, there must be like one or a couple of people sometime in a couple of years ago they came together. Why don't we do history? Like, what's the history of this group?
Sure. So initially, several of ours here, like Greg and Sergio, we know each other for almost 7 years now. We started meeting at the back of the bars, and we'll put up a presentation, just talk on random historical subjects. It was not organized or anything like that. There was nothing like in this format, and we're just chat about history. And then little by little, we start getting into more, meetups. And then when the COVID happened, we took this to Zoom, and we basically expanded. We used to meet once a month. Now we meet 4 or 5 times a week, because there's so much demand for this, and interest factor of so many different subject matters, like ancient Rome, Middle East. We do modern. We did a lot of them, like World War II, Pacific War. Like we talk about history of England, history of, like, for example, Middle East at this point. We're gonna go into China. We're gonna go to India. We're gonna do the whole world basically in that regard. So do join our meetup, and that's how it. And then Howard. I think I know Howard for 1.5 years now. He's doing presentations. So Peter, if you do want to do a presentation, let us know. We have on a schedule. We do look for presenters as well. So we have some stuff that you can present, like Marion, for example, one of the emperors. Or if you have a subject matter you want to talk about, anything you want to talk about, history, even current, you let us know. We can put it in. Like, for example, one of the topics is Europe from 1946 to now. So that's one of the topics. Archaeology in Asia. Then we have the libraries that were destroyed, Ashurbanipal and Assyria and stuff. We started with Mesopotamia, where the first cities were, and then we went to Akkadian Empire, Sumeria, Babylon, Assyria. We didn't do Egypt yet, so I'm thinking in February we're gonna start Egyptian. Every Sunday we'll do something. We're gonna start with Hyksos actually, and the intermediate period, and then we'll go back to the beginning of the Egypt and all the way through. So we go in some of it we go chronologically, some of it just random subject matters. Whoever comes up, and in our YouTube channel we have history of monasteries, different orders like Jesuits, like those. We can talk about even sports. like history of mixed martial arts, history of the rivalry of Soviet Union versus United States in sports. We did parasailing sport, so anything history related we touch on. And there's a lot of really good people here that, are doing really good job. So,
yeah, I see a group like this to be a very good foundation for, future younger generations to actually get into history. And the reason I think like this is because I think we as human society is valuing a little bit too much on the STEM side of things, and stuff like philosophy, history, or even just arts in general is being viewed as almost useless in modern human history or in modern, human civilization. And I think what you guys doing is actually a very good foundation, even though it's not might be, worldly recognized. But I'm actually very happy that a group like this does exist, because I've been looking for something like this for almost 10 years of my life. So I kind of finally stumbled upon it.
Yeah, where are you located, Peter? You're in Chicago, or?
Oh no, I'm actually on the West Coast of the United States.
Oh, okay.
But Sundays is good because Sunday is usually my time off.
Okay, good. Yeah, because we do have a couple of people in the West Coast that join us. Lisa, for example, she's one of our regular presenters. We have a couple of, Sacramento, in LA area, Napa Valley and all that stuff. So, people join us all over the world. We actually just recently held, King Arthur, whether was it true or a myth, and it's on our YouTube channel. And we had over 100 people from London that joined. So that's cool,
I don't know what your guys' ultimate vision is, or it's boundless, but I see this, if you could do it the right ways, you could actually eventually start with like a virtual free online history university if you like to. This is very cool.
The plan is right now to grow the channel, to grow the awareness of people, get more people to participate, do presentations. Like, people step up sometimes they're shy, they don't want to step up and do a presentation. But you know what, we're all different level, right? You can have people that are experts, and then you can have people that are not, they want to learn. And and that's just the way it is. And if they step up and they do a good job, they come back and they do it again, and that's how you become good. And then you do research, you learn more, and then you start reading more books, and stuff like that. So like a lot of the stuff I didn't know, like I'm originally from a country called Uzbekistan, and my most it was Russian history, the history of Timur-Lane, Chinese history. I didn't know much about Western history. And you learn, you study it, and you read books. Like, you have somebody like Howard read, they keep me honest sometimes.
And I also see the biggest upside of, like, even though this is my first time here, right, and it's been a little less than 2 hours since I've met this group and everyone here so far, I can already tell that this is going to be a pretty good foundation for me to start, picking up my history interest again, and probably, one day, I don't know, maybe reach a certain level of expertise. Because if there's one thing that I noticed, that in Western culture, like not just the United States, Canada, but Australia, most of Europe, when they teach world history, is more or less along the lines of Eurocentric views. And I think that's a little bit flawed, right? When you're teaching world history, it should not be any centric views. It should be world level views. And the reason I see this is because, let's face it, in the past 500 years in human history, has mostly been white European men dominating the world. So there's a reason for it, but I think we're slowly climbing out of it.
So I'm taking suggestions in the next movie. I'm thinking, I want to keep it an ancient so far. So either do Homer, Troy, or we can do 300. You guys choose. What's
That's a tough call. 300 is not the most idiotic ahistorical movie out there. 300 Birth of an Empire is. There's enough air. Basically, there was a guy named Leonidas, and there was a guy named Xerxes, and there was a battle called Thermopylae. The movie doesn't get much else right.
Okay.
But there is an older movie, by the way.
What?
There is an older movie.
There is a
called
movie.
300, yeah, Spartans. Yeah,
It is, but same thing.
it's pretty good.
It's not as crazy as it's not. I believe I've
Yeah.
seen it a very long time ago. I don't remember it very well.
There's actually a really good movie about Mongols. That's international movie. It's not made in the West. I think
it's not the one starring John Wayne.
No.
I'm serious about that. There is a movie about Genghis Khan starring John Wayne.
Oh my God.
And yes, it's as deranged as it sounds.
I'm gonna pillage your village.
Well,
Do you guys also
Yeah.
analyze history books at all, or just
History books might be
documentaries?
better.
Yeah,
The
we
history
could-
movies, very few history movies work for me.
but they do draw interest. I mean, first I want
Yeah.
to, we do what we do, Peter. We have ancient literature on every, once a month, Wednesday. Like we're doing Marcus Aurelius Stoicism, but we did Plutarch, we did Republic. So we go through ancient literature, and in that context, we talk about history. So I don't know if that's something you were looking for, but not a history books.
Okay. So what I was thinking is more along the line. I know that books are generally more boring than watching a movie, but that being said, I don't know if you guys have ever done this in your entire history since the meetup group was even made, but I'm assuming at least once. But if you haven't, then I would like to be the next presenter. I just don't know what time, which is to apply a lot of, what I'm about to do is very specific, and I'll explain in little detail, but it's to, let's say we analyze today, like, Commodus, right? The Roman legion, the fighting styles, and maybe in the future we do the Renaissance and then, other parts of the human history. And then I would like to tie those things to exactly how it actually ties to a book that which I think is one of the few sources that can actually, and has been, stood the test of time, which is The Art of War, written by Sun Tzu. And to actually see exactly, for example, exactly which historical leader, the decisions he made, and how it can tie to what Sun Tzu wrote in his book. And because, I don't know if you guys know this, but the US Air Force, Naval, and Military Academy in West Point, they still teach the certain aspects of a 2,500-year-old book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Sounds very interesting. I think, Peter, it would be a great idea if you could, let's say, take some parts of that book and tie specifically historical strategies in especially ancient times, tied to it, how it affected. And by the way, on that Omnicarta, there is this YouTube channel. There is a lot of things you could watch that we've already presented, and including literature and various kind of presentations, just to see more. There's a lot of it, right?
Well, we're 130 videos. Yeah, it's we've been busy. We've been.
I had fun doing a presentation in King Pyrrhus of Epirus because, as far as I'm concerned, the Plutarch, the primary reference, is sort of forcing that thing into a Greek tragedy. It's a lot like the wreck of the Titanic.
We've discussed many Plutarch. Specifically, the whole session is devoted to one. The most recent one, we discussed Lysander. There's a general that basically concluded the Peloponnesian War and established all the tyrannies, so the tyranny of 30s in Athens. And prior to that, we discussed Cimon. We discussed Pericles, many other, and we specifically go through Plutarch's. We read excerpts from it and discuss it. So it's on the YouTube channel if you're interested to look at that.
Yeah, definitely, Peter. Check it out. See if you like which one, it suits your, and then you can come to me and to us and next presentation. Say, I want to do.
Someone just post the link to your YouTube channel, please.
Sure. Yes.
So this way I can open it and subscribe to it.
Of course. Thank you. We don't have that many subscribers right now. We only have 250, but you know, it's coming there.
More than my channel.
Well, how much do you have?
I have like 40.
Oh,
And it's not even history related. So
it's like Bitcoin investing or something. Yeah, those get a lot of hits. You know, there was this lady that goes around Uzbekistan, and she goes to various villages and just basically, you know, does the weddings and stuff like that. In 3 months, she just hit 1 million subscribers. So, you know, who's to say, you know, dumb video like that, 19-year-old going around and, you know, villages in Uzbekistan, apparently, you know, there's a lot of interest to that. And
What's she wearing?
no, she's from the region of Tatarstan in Russia. She's a Tartar and she speaks Uzbek language. And she just goes, in Uzbekistan, there's so many different nationalities that live in villages. You have Dungans. Dungans are actually Chinese and, you know, descendants of from Uyghurs. And so she goes and shoots a wedding for, you know, Chinese wedding in Uzbekistan, and people like, oh my God, it's really good. Or she goes and, you know, like just collects, you know, cotton or something like that, and in one of the villages, or eats their food, and then somehow people like it. And I wanted to collaborate with her, and she basically told me how much can I pay her? 19-year-old, you know, from Russia. She wants me to pay her. I can pay you in rubles, I said.
Everybody in the US is rich. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, she was like, what are you gonna do for me? I was like, I just wanted to shoot a video. I just wanted to shoot a video about Tamerlane, Timur, because she's in Samarkand right now. And she goes, what are you gonna do for my channel? I was like, okay, nothing. What are you gonna, you know, we collaborate and we're both gonna get hits. That's all. That's why we're gonna do the first, and people like this, we're gonna collaborate with the food. We're gonna do marijuana, and we're gonna talk about food. We're gonna, you know, history of food, and we're gonna go to the Ukrainian, you know, museum, and, you know, on a 28th, so it'll be cool. Howard, you're welcome if you want to come from Canada. You guys allowed to the United States now.
Yeah, I'm
Zach,
not sure
I
whether
was
that-
going to ask you. Zach, I was going to ask you about that. You emailed me about that dinner and the museum.
Yes.
You also said that you were going to do filming. How is that going to work in terms of dinner?
So I'm mostly gonna do filming in the Ukrainian museum, and there I'll just, like, whenever you order food, I'll say, you know, like, let's say you order borscht, you know, we'll just talk about. I will talk about, not you. I will talk about, you know, what is borscht is made of, what's the history of borscht, for like 5-10 minutes, not really that much, and then whoever ordered different things, we'll just talk about it. But we used to have food outings. We didn't really shoot anything, so we'll see what the preferences of people. But I did post on the channel that I would like to do a video and post so that people can see that we go out there to the museum, to a restaurant, and it seems to be like the food is a big seller, you know, on the channels. You know, people like food and history and stuff like that. At some point, I want to also create a cooking version where I'm going to talk about history with, like, let's say Sergio. We're going to be wearing like legionnaire suits or something like that, and we're going to cook some food from ethnic food or something like that. I don't know. We'll see.
A friend
I've
of
got a magazine article lying around here somewhere on ancient Roman cooking. How does stuffed dormice sound to you?
That sounds awesome. That beside loving history, I'm also a foodie. so that part sounds great.
Yeah, we already did 5 or 6 restaurants. We went to Uzbekistan place. We went to Persian place. We did Turkey. And we concurrent with that, we did the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We did the Muhammad tour. We talked about, you know, there's a section in Metropolitan Museum about Muhammad and Middle East. And then we did the Byzantium and Greek and Roman history in museum. And then we also went to the Greek place after that. So we kind of tried to match. We did Phoenician history, and then we went to Lebanese place, you know. I don't know, it's very stretched type of connection, but we still did that.
No. It sounds fabulous. I really hope I can join you.
Yeah, please, and bring you some, significant other, whoever you want to bring, and then I will call them in advance with our reservations, and then we'll post it. People are gonna hopefully enjoy, us munching on some good, Russian food.
Sounds
my
wonderful.
my question is, should we keep those kind of, quote unquote historical fun fact about, food dishes, like on a more casual level, or should we go slightly deeper? Because I'll give an example of what I meant by this. Like, if I'm going to present something about food and history, I'm going to actually, I don't know if this is going to be derailing, like derailing against your guys's, ultimate, goal or trajectory. Because if it's not in line, just let me know right now. But I would like to talk about how the biological and scientific method and how it works on a molecular level when you preserve food way before the time of refrigerators, for example. So I could talk about that, but then again, if it becomes too sciencey, you can tell me to stop.
No, we
Are
actually
you talking about 19th century canning or something the ancient Romans did?
No, I'm talking about even before canning. Like, obviously we as people, human race, we figured out a way to, store food healthy enough that we are alive as a species, right? And I want to talk about that. So
yeah, if you have something like that, we did actually history of sugar, and we talk about composition of why our brains attract to sugar, because it's like almost like drug, right? Because once you have a couple of spoons of sugar, you're addicted, And so we talked about the composition and why it happens, sugar cane, where it came from, and then we also tied to the history, the plantations, the slavery and all that stuff. So, we always do scientific connection to the, sugar is a food item, right? We're talking about in that regard, So
the reason I was asking if it's okay to do that is because I've noticed that from personal experience, a lot of groups that are in their startup age or phase, or like in their small medium phase of like even a company, if you will call it, right? Like something like what you guys are doing. I see over 90% of the time that, like organizations like at this stage either completely stop attracting new members or actually flunk because they derail from their original trajectory. So I just don't want to contribute to that.
Right. No, it was my plan from the beginning to add a food option for people. It's just with COVID, it kind of stopped. We used to get together in restaurants, and it actually added and made us more of a family. So it's always welcome. We're all very, very nice here. There is absolutely, we don't never, and Howard and Greg can point to it, we never have conflicts on air. We do have Zoom bombing here and there.
You've got the renaming turned off, right?
I got renaming turned off, and now I know that you have 19-year-old kids just get together, and instead of learning history, they want to Zoom bomb and call everybody names, and it's just disgusting.
Yeah.
You should be glad that you're using Zoom, because there are actually, I'm not kidding you guys, there are some platforms that people use which have an inherent design flaw, because the people who designed those softwares for like online meeting don't actually have an option to kick someone out. So
wow. Yeah, I mean, I was even thinking of switching to like WebEx or Skype, but then I realized that Zoom is, Howard, helped me research what I can do to protect ourselves. And
I'm using Jitsi for professional meetings, but I haven't had any problem. Again, I'm doing it with a very small, well-defined group. So like the jerks and assholes don't know where I am.
Yeah, I mean,
so you're kind of hanging everything out there, which is great in terms of participation, but it sucks if somebody idiotic gets online.
Right, but to your point, why were they interested in the first Punic War?
Well, I keep joking with people that what you really need to do is do a colored Baptist ladies outreach to the Beth Shalom synagogue and schedule that as a Zoom meeting, and I'm sure the place would be full of trolls.
Yeah,
You just need some strategy for dealing with them.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, you get sometimes like hate. Like I'm not Muslim, right? We had a Islam 101 presentation on last Wednesday. They did an incredible job. It was actually, he's a physician and he is also a cleric. And he did an amazing job, but the people were posting like all this nonsense, you know, talking about Zionism. Like there's no place in this place to talk about stuff like that. And we just wanted to learn what the Muslim religion is all about. We don't need to be talking about hate, nothing. I don't want to keep it, you know, like, and so that's why I'm always scared. And I had over 100 people on, so I was scared.
That was a fascinating, really fascinating. I tuned in for that. I was there for that, and that was quite fascinating. There were things in there that I think people could pick on, but that wasn't the purpose. That wasn't the. It was educational, and he did a great job. I learned so much.
I mean, first of all, there was this inappropriate comment like, "Oh, you know, they believed in slavery." I was just like, I kind of upheld them. I said, you know what? There was the times that people were always people, and especially in ancient times, when the slavery was not, you know, was predominant. How do you really tell a next person like, oh, you're not following the holy book because, you know, the slavery and such, you know, those were the times. We had crusades, we had forcible conversions. Oh, everything was going on. People were, you know, doing all these things. You know, now we're in modern time, we're applying. But look, in modern times, the Holocaust happened, right? Hitler, you know, even what's his name? Hitler's architect,
Albert Speer.
Speer, he said, "I can't believe I was led through this path. I'm an intelligent person. I led through this nonsense." You know.
Well, look at Pol Pot. There was Cambodia. There was Pol Pot. But I think your comment about we don't do that anymore. We do that now. I don't think we have learned. We have not learned our lesson.
That's true. I mean, there's you know, prevalent you know, obviously enslaving, and there's different forms of enslaving. You know, sometimes when you work 80 hours a week, that's slavery.
So
right.
if I may suggest something, if when someone's doing like in a presentation, can you ask him or her to, I don't know, like it's, you know, preferably before the presentation happens, right? Like maybe a day before. They put onto like some sort of website or like a, you know, Excel for, you know, certain groups that can see where they're getting their sources, because I think this is a very good way for people who are interested in history to actually fact check each other instead of just telling each other quote unquote fun facts, because you don't know if the person, even if someone has like good intentions, they might actually be misinformed. So
definitely, we can definitely implement something like this. We do have a lot of presenters that do show their references. We do have some scholars that present here. We have one person that wrote a book about the Viking Andalusia, you know, interactions, you know, Muslim and Viking interaction. And, you know, he did, you know, have reference, and we have other people that do give references. But, you know, our group is more like social type of, you know, we would probably grow to the point where we're going to be more professional on that level. But we do have some scholars that do that a lot. But as us, we're not historians. Like Howard, I don't know, maybe Howard has a degree in history. I don't. You know, I'm a finance person.
I have a diploma in mechanical engineering technology. I did post stuff on my website, which does have references on it.
Yeah. So if it's a professional, you do professionally, then you do.
Yeah, I'm actually attracted to the informality of it. Lots of information in an informal setting.
Yeah, because when a scholar came, and it was very exciting to him, but to us, we were sitting there, it was like, he would say, you know, he would finish the sentence, and he goes, .end, you know, like, okay, we're not here to like listen to that. we're here to like enjoy the history. We're literally like, I'm, you know, like even if I'm wrong, Howard always corrects me, and I'm, you know, he's nice enough to do it in the matter where we're not offending each other, you know. And it's cool. I like it. I like the point that it's kind of a jazzy type of environment, you know?
Yeah, I like that aspect.
You can't have read everything. So like if I'm doing a presentation, I've read 2 or 3 books, and you've probably got something really good that I haven't seen, that I didn't get my hands on. So it does help having people come in and point this stuff out.
Yeah.
Right. Leave your ego at the door.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Like, for example, he was talking on Wednesday, he was talking about the Muslim religion contributing to weight loss. Like, come on. I mean, that, you know, that's just something of a propaganda piece. I mean, I mean, I understand. I mean,
Now, that one I'm curious about.
yeah, like it was kind of like a fun fact, you know, there's a dietary restriction, stuff like that. But what about, you know, kosher law? There's a lot of dietary restrictions there too, you know. You know, what about
Well, actually, how halal is McDonald's as long as there's no pork?
where in Middle East, how they have McDonald's? They don't have pork there.
Yeah, and I'm saying if it's got pork in it, it's not. It can't be halal. But just how bad is McDonald's in that context? Actually, funny thing here in Toronto, Canada, the pizza stores, all the pizza stores used to be run by Chinese, and now they're all being taken over by Arabs, and they're advertising halal pizzas.
Oh wow!
You know, God forbid Italians should run these things.
Oh no! I mean, probably initially, all you Italians are playing hockey, man.
Well, I think with modern globalization, there should be less and less expectation that, you know, certain foods should be cooked by certain people, if that makes sense. Like, cause I mean, like, let's be honest, Gordon Ramsay is a hell of a chef. That's why he's a celebrity, right? And he's some people still think he's just an actor. No, he's an actual legitimate, very excellent chef. And he can cook pretty much a dish from every culture with like equal amount of quality. But he is a Scottish person. So, you know, I don't think it's fair to say, you know, he should stick with Scottish food. He should just stick with like haggis, you know? So.
So yeah.
Where else are we going to get deep fried Mars bars?
Here we go. Listen, you know, Mel, Peter, Dennis, and Howard, thank you guys for joining us. And I hope to see you on our future presentations. And, you know, we'd love you back, obviously, you know, and then, like I said, you know, whenever you guys want to do a presentation, just shoot me an email or go to our, you know, one of our social, I'm going to, on Facebook, Instagram, Romney Carter, and shoot me a message. And I want to keep this going, right? A lot of the people that leave right now, they don't actually interact outside of it, but there's a lot of archaeological artifacts that people find, and there's new things coming up every time. I want to keep interaction going, type of thing. So, good night.
Something worth remembering. I'm an organizer with a ski club, and our crude rule of thumb is that we lose 40% of our members every year. So as long as we sign up 40 new people, we're okay.
All right. I want to wish everybody a nice evening. Yeah. And I'll see you when I see you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you very much. It was a good presentation.
Good night. Good night.
Thanks so much. Good night.